Hello, I am Seema and welcome to part 1 of the chapter Chemical Kinetics. I will begin this chapter with a story, and the story is of a scientist, and the scientist is Swami. Swami is preparing to be a scientist, he's studying to be a scientist, a chemist, and he's really very intelligent. He's very hardworking. He really, whatever topic he takes, he studies it thoroughly and he tries to apply it wherever he can. So he's a very sincere student. The only problem with Swami is that whatever he studies, he immediately tries to apply it. So let us just understand the story of Swami. What did he do one day? Swami had read 2 chapters in real details. The first chapter was thermodynamics. So in this chapter, he understood the feasibility of a reaction. And he understood that for a reaction to be spontaneous, the value of delta G, that is the free energy change, should be negative. If delta G is negative, the reaction is feasible or it tends to be spontaneous. He understood this. And this was a very important information to know, that a reaction is whether a reaction is actually possible or not. So Swami was now equipped with the knowledge of thermodynamics. He knew which reactions are feasible and which are not feasible thermodynamically. Alright? Then there was another branch of chemistry, or should I say another chapter that he studied very thoroughly. And that chapter was chemical equilibrium. Now he knew on the basis of equilibrium that all reactions that tend to be reversible, usually actually all reactions are reversible, only those that tend to almost occur to the end are assumed to be irreversible. But reactions that are reversible, where you can visibly see that the reaction is reversible, a state of equilibrium is established. And once the state of equilibrium is established, the concentrations of the reactants and the products, they become constant. Now Swami knew this, that if I take this particular reaction, the equilibrium will establish somewhere in the middle. For this reaction, the equilibrium will have more of products and less of reactants. For this reaction, at equilibrium, the concentration of the reactants will be more than the concentration of the products. So, with his knowledge of equilibrium, he now knew that to what extent would a chemical reaction take place. So, he knew first whether or not a chemical reaction would take place, because reactions only that are feasible would take place. Second, he knew that even if it is feasible, how much of it, what would be the extent of the reaction? And that he studied in the chapter Equilibrium. So now Swami was very happy. He was happy that he knew enough. And therefore, one day he wore a new suit, a beautiful suit, and he had a new lab coat, and he decided to go to the laboratory and carry out an experiment. And when he decided to carry out an experiment, he said, today I'm going to go and see the oxidation of iron with air. This is the experiment that he's going to watch. And so early in the morning he got up, he got dressed, and he had his new dress and new clothes, and he got the new lab coat, and he picked up his briefcase full of his books and all his material, and with a lot of confidence that now I know everything, he entered the laboratory. So he took a piece of iron, and that little piece of iron, he kept it on the table for him to watch, and lab coat and everything nice, because nothing should be splashed, his clothes shouldn't get dirty, after all he's wearing a new suit. And then Swami sits and he watches, because he has to watch the iron react with air, and the coating of oxygen on iron with the help of air and moisture is nothing but rusting. So he sits there and he watches, and the whole day passes. At around noon he starts feeling a little hungry, but what can he do? And he has not brought any food, yet he's a scientist and he cannot pretend to be someone who's just distracted by food. So he just quietly sits there and keeps watching. And evening comes, nothing happens. Night falls, and now he has nowhere to sleep. But he cannot even move from that seat, because a scientist is not supposed to. What if he goes away and that is when the oxide is formed and he misses the very experiment when he's in the bathroom? So he just sits there, and now at night he has nowhere to sleep. he has nowhere to sleep, but he has nowhere to go also. He has to sit there and he has to watch. The next morning, he doesn't have a change of clothes, and Muthuswami's new suit is soiled, it is kind of sweaty, and it is no longer fresh, he doesn't smell good, but he still sits there waiting for the iron to rust. And then he realizes, someone comes and tells him, this is not going to happen like this, and this might take years. And you have come here and you're looking for an experiment where you're thinking it's going to happen within an hour. So, Muthuswami, this is not going to be of any use. Go back and come back tomorrow with another experiment in mind. So, Muthuswami was a smart guy. You know, the next day, he was really prepared. What did he do today? He had his knowledge of thermodynamics and chemical equilibrium. And today he decided he's going to study the precipitate of silver chloride. How does silver chloride precipitate? And when silver nitrate and sodium chloride solutions are mixed, he wanted to see the precipitation of silver chloride. Now what did he do? Since Muthuswami was a smart guy, he packed a bag. He took his clothes worthy of about a month. He packed an attaché case full of a month's clothes. He got his food reserves for about a month that he would keep in the laboratory refrigerator, which would sustain him for about a month. Even if it took time, he was prepared for it. And he got a sleeping bag. So he was well prepared to really camp in the laboratory. And he got nice fresh lab coats which were kept in nice wrappers so that every day when he gets up for a month, he would have a fresh, nice lab coat also. And of course, he has the change of clothes. So Muthuswami, now very well prepared with all his bags and baggages, comes to the laboratory prepared to carry out the experiment. And what happens? He takes a little silver nitrate and sodium chloride solution in 2 test tubes. He mixes them and boom, there's a white precipitate of silver chloride like that. And he just looks at it and he doesn't know what to do, because all his bag and baggage that he has come with is useless, because this experiment that he was here to perform occurred almost instantaneously. So what does Muthuswami realize? That just the knowledge of the feasibility of a reaction, or how far would the extent of the reaction be, is not enough unless and until we know the speed of the reaction. How fast would the reaction take place? So the rate of a reaction is equally important in chemistry. And this study of a rate of the reaction is studied under chemical kinetics. Kinetics is, you studied about kinetic energy in physics. So kinetics is the kinetics, the speeds, the rates of reactions. And why do we call it the study of just the rates of reaction? Because it is this study which will help you know not only the rates of reaction, but the mechanisms of these reactions. Why is the rate? We start explaining why exactly is the rate of this reaction so quick, or why is this reaction so slow? And on the basis of that study, we decide, is there a way that we could alter the speed of this reaction? Maybe we want this reaction to be faster, or maybe we want this particular reaction to be slower. For example, I would like the reaction which is making me old, I would like that reaction to be slower. So you want to change the rates of reactions, and that is studied under chemical kinetics. Now we have a few examples of this now. So the speed of a reaction is rate, and this is studied under kinetics. What is the importance of the study of kinetics? There are a few examples that are given. First, we must have the knowledge that what is the speed with which food spoils. Imagine that if I made food in the morning and I had no idea that in the summer months, in about 6-7 hours, if I leave the food out, it might get spoiled and I should put it in the refrigerator. I must cool it up quickly and put it in the refrigerator to save it. If I had no idea of this, I would just leave the food out. I make the food early in the morning and then I go out for work. In the evening, I just meet a few friends, so we decide to go out for a little shopping, and then we stand and chat, and then we just go for a little coffee, and by the time I get back home, I know I have prepared my dinner in the morning and I'm such an organized person, but when I get home, the food is all rancid, it is spoiled, it is smelling. So again, this is one very common life example where we understand that how important it is for us to know the rate of a reaction. How quickly would the food get spoiled? And if I thought that, well, food never got spoiled, I would just cook once for my entire lifetime. And why would I go cooking every day? Why would I waste my time every day? Do it once and finish it up. So, which is not possible again. And even if I do want to store the food, I would have to add preservatives to it. I would have to freeze it. There are different ways of increasing the shelf life of the food. But in order to do that, I must have the knowledge of chemical kinetics. A dental filling, when a dentist, he puts a filling inside your tooth, the filling sets very quickly. And he has very little time to quickly set it into shape. So once your tooth is filled, he usually has a mold. He has an idea what is the shape that he wants the filling into. So he'll put it in a mold and quickly put it inside on your tooth and cover your tooth with it. So the knowledge of the speed with which the dental filling would set helps the dentist to really work according to that speed. What controls rate? Yeah. Another thing, our knowledge of kinetics, why do we need it? I go for a long drive. So one fine day, I decide to go on a ride. And I'm going to a place a road that leads me to the middle of nowhere. And because I like going into a jungle and going for a trek, but I'm taking my car there because I have to get back also. So I start driving. And I realize, I see the fuel in my car is not enough. And there is no petrol pump on the way. Yet I have no idea at what speed is my car going to use that fuel. If I have no idea how long my car is going to run, do you think I would have enough knowledge to judge whether I should fill up my fuel tank beforehand, or I could just take the trip and come back and maybe get the fuel the next day? So your knowledge of what controls the rate, one, how much of fuel would be used, how much distance can you run, how long is your fuel going to last, and at what rate does fuel burn in your automobile? This knowledge is important, and this knowledge is nothing but the knowledge of kinetics. Now, thermodynamics says, yeah, this is very interesting. Swami told a lady in his family, and he said, do you know that diamonds, they get converted into graphite? And this is a scientific fact. And you can never refute a scientific fact, you know. All diamond, it turns into graphite. So, and he doesn't know anything about kinetics. So his cousin, who is not a science student, says, really? So he says, yeah, all diamond, but I hear that diamonds are forever. Oh, that's a lie, that's a myth. Diamonds are not forever. All diamond has to turn into graphite. So she brings a piece of diamond that she has, and it's a family heirloom. She's got it from her great-great-great-great-great-grandmother, and it has been coming down the generations, and she has this little diamond, and she shows it to him. What about this? Then this should have been graphite, but this is still diamond. So here also, diamond of course does eventually turn into graphite, but this may take many years. So maybe thousands of years. So to us it appears that diamonds are forever. So this is a very slow reaction. Again, our lack of knowledge of the rate of reactions does not let us know that such a thing happens. The next example here is, how does the study of kinetics help us to know how we can alter the rate of a reaction? Your knowledge of chemical kinetics will help you to not only know the rates of reactions, but this knowledge is required to manipulate the rates also. You would want certain reactions to take place faster, and you would want certain reactions to take place slower, which I told you. We've done this example with silver nitrate and sodium chloride. They react, they give silver chloride and precipitate, and this is a very fast reaction. And rusting of iron takes years, and Swami has done all these experiments. Inversion of cane sugar and hydrolysis of starch. These are examples of medium rate reactions. They are neither too fast nor are they too slow. So in chemical kinetics, our study takes place at two levels. One is the macroscopic level, that is the larger picture. How much of reactant did we take? How much of product is going to be formed? And in how much time am I going to get this? So in the industry, if I'm using it, how much raw material should I order? And what are the conditions under which this reaction should take place? And how can I alter the rate of this reaction to get more product? So one is at the macroscopic level where we are seeing these things. And at the microscopic level, we notice that what is actually happening to the molecules when they react. Is it that at a certain orientation, when they hit, that is when they react, maybe when two molecules are coming close and they hit at the wrong direction, they cannot react. It is like the lock and key. It is only when they fall, the orientation is right, only then they react. So these microscopic things that are happening and which are affecting the rate of a reaction, that is also what we study under chemical kinetics. And it is this knowledge that helps us to alter the rates of chemical reactions. So let me just read this out. In kinetics, at macroscopic level, we want to know the amount of substance that reacted or the amount of substance that was formed. And at the microscopic level, we want to know the reaction mechanisms involving the orientations of the molecules and the collisions, what is the rate of collision? Does more collision lead to more product or does less collision lead to more product? Because sometimes if the collisions are too high, then the orientation may not be right. So what are the factors, what is the balance between them which would decide how to get a better produce or whether to increase the rate or slow down the rate of a reaction? So this is what we are going to study in chemical kinetics. In the next video, I'm going to tell you about reaction rates. So see you tomorrow, and if you found the video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, recommend it to your friends, and please keep returning for more videos in chemistry. Thank you for watching, and bye-bye for now. Swami also says bye.